Hey everybody, great to see you. I'm so glad you're here today. And it's Friday, so it's the last day of the live stream. So I'll see you again next Monday after today's. And something that occurred to me the other day was that people were really looking for, hey Kathy, people were really looking for some great body mind solutions for how they feel. And since I'm a massage therapist, a shiatsu massage therapist. Hey, Chrissy. So all of my work is based on Asian medicine and Asian medicine principles and philosophies. I've got tons of great information that usually I only share with the people who come into my office. Hey, Camilla. The people who come into my office and I work with them one-on-one. But I thought it would be fun to share some of them into my live streams, especially today. So yesterday we talked about brain fog. And when we were talking about brain fog, one of my most favorite healing tools, besides hands-on healing, came up. And the tool was using hot and cold for just about anything. So the first time I was introduced to hot and cold was when I was a kid on Easter. So my dad would work hard, like a lot of dads did. And on Easter Sunday, he didn't want to do anything. And so they would hide, some Easter gifts and Easter baskets around the living room. And then my dad would play hot and cold with my sister and I, to find these Easter baskets. And so we'd move a little bit here. We'd look behind, this vase or that, dresser or whatever. And it would be hot or cold. And so I actually started my relationship with hot and cold in a pretty positive way. It was used for a really fun game. So I have it kept me open to thinking about how much fun hot and cold could be. And the world has just expanded since then with what it does. So in Asian medicine, there's two main principles. One is life. Hey, we're back on. Great. Hi, Trisha. Good to see you. So I was talking about hot and cold, and I was talking about the way we use hot and cold in order to feel better. So the next time I got in touch with hot and cold was when I was working with Native Americans. And when I was working with Native Americans, they would use sweat lodges and they would use sacred fires. Hey, Nellie, in order to, as a big part of their healing practice. And I really wanted to understand that. And then after I got involved with how they use heat for spiritual healing, heat and cold, like a sauna, for spiritual enlightenment, I got into Asian medicine. And I realized Asian medicine uses it too. And I just realized that hot and cold has been a big foundation of healing since the beginning of time because it's so, hey Ronnie, because it's so accessible to everybody. And so I'm going to give you the principles of hot and cold and how you can use it to heal anything that is spiritual, that is physical, that is mental, that is emotional, because it's having both of them together that really does the work. So I was talking about Asian medicine, and I was talking about how the two big principles are life, which is qi. Qi is life, and balance. You're always trying to get your qi in balance. Find a balance that works for you. Hey, Sue. And you have life when you have hot and cold come together. When you've got the contradiction, that's what creates life. And then you're constantly working to not only create life and have that spark, that movement, that passion, but also have it in a balance that you love. So you need hot and cold in order for that mixing together, that spark of life. And then you use hot and cold in order to bring you into balance, whether it's into balance with your mental state, your emotional state, or your physical state. So let's start with, hey, Cara, let's start with your mental state. Let's say you're feeling kind of crazy. You're feeling like you can't get a hold of your thoughts. You're feeling that you're a little out of control, that your brain's going everywhere, and you can't focus. So a great way to use hot and cold to focus is when you go outside. Let's say it's a cold day and I'm having an anxiety attack at a party. One of the things that I'll do is I will go outside, because a change in temperature brings you back to your present, brings you back present. It sort of slaps you into the present pretty quickly. And so when I need to get over an anxiety attack fairly fast, I will go into a cold temperature. I will open up the refrigerator door. I will go for a walk if it's a winter day. I'll take my jacket off. I'll do something along those lines, because cold wakes up your nervous system and also shuts it down just a little bit so you don't feel so much. So cold helps you not feel as much. So when you're feeling too much, your mental state, your anxiety state, your depression is a little out of control, go into someplace that's cold and it'll help make you present again. So the same thing with warm. If I'm in an anxious state, yeah, it's pretty cool, Kathy. If I'm in a little bit of a geared up state and I'm almost overstimulated, if I'm way overstimulated, what I'll do is I will take a bath, because this is what happens when we're overstimulated. Our body goes into fight or flight, and it pulls in our resources, and we get cold. Everything goes into our core, and we get cold, and we protect ourselves. The heat will go away from our limbs. It will, because we're starting to shut down. When we're in that shutdown mode, a great way to get out of that is to take a warm bath, because it will start pulling that blood back out of you, and it will also give you a different felt sense. So you don't feel, it'll give you a pleasurable felt sense so you can start to be present again. So you don't have to check out and protect yourself. You can be comfortable and be present, and so that warmth helps bring that blood back out. Okay, so that's one way to use hot and cold for your mental state. Let me talk about using hot and cold for your spiritual state. Fun enough. Okay, so I was talking about Native Americans, and I was talking about traditions. And also, actually, so many different cultures around the world would use hot and cold. So, I mean, if you look around, you'll find saunas, you'll find sweat lodges, you'll find, cold plunges, you'll find hot baths. In Asian cultures, they'll use a warm pool and a cold pool right next to each other. And these are actually used in a lot of spiritual rituals, because what heat will do is it will take you into an expanded state of consciousness. Hey, Mary Jane, especially when you get too hot. So a lot of times they will do healing ceremonies or healing rituals in a sauna or a sweat lodge. Because it takes you into an altered state of reality. When you get a little bit too warm, have you ever noticed when you get a little bit too warm, you start to feel spacey, your blood pressure kind of drops, you expand. Because what happens is when you get warm, all of your blood vessels open up. They get very big. And because of that, your blood pressure can drop and you can faint. And that lightheadedness will give you a different spiritual state. It will put you into a little bit of a trance state, and you're able to access parts of you that maybe you couldn't access before, because you are not in your normal state of mind. You're into a more, a higher state of mind. And so a lot of rituals will involve overheating in order to get you out of your normal state of mind and into a more open, spiritualized, trance sort of state of mind. So they'll use it all the time. But the thing you have to be really careful of when you use saunas or sweat lodges or things along those lines for spiritual experiences is it's easy to push yourself too far, because you're walking on this edge of being a little bit overheated. And because you're walking on that edge, you're pushing yourself to be into a different state. You can go too far. And so people can get very hurt if they aren't smart or if they aren't in a really safe, guided state where someone can monitor, what's going on with them so that they don't actually hurt themselves, so something dangerous doesn't happen. So if you're not careful, when you use heat for a ritualized, spiritualized experience to go into a different state of mind, it's really best to do it when you're with somebody else, because you're walking on that edge. Somebody who is looking out for you and monitoring you and making sure that you aren't not paying attention to the signs that there's something wrong. So they'll use similar things for cold. Winter in Asian medicine is considered a time of dreaming. It's a time of emotions. It's that going within, because when we're cold, once again, we go within ourselves. We go deep inside of ourselves, and we really focus on that dream time. So when you do something like sweat lodges or things, hey, Deb, when you do stuff like sweat lodges, you're reaching out into sensations and further into the universe and being hypersensitive to what's going on. And what cold will do for a spiritual sort of experience is it will pull you inside, and it will help you look at your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions and your ideas and your dreams. So it's a great self-reflective tool. So cold is awesome to help you really go and listen to what's going on with you, because you stop being sensitive to anything around you. So heat will expand you, and cold will bring you deep inside. So how about hot and cold on the physical realm? Okay, great. So other cultures used hot and cold like a sauna in more Norwegian cultures in order to stimulate circulation. They didn't use it for spiritual purposes as much. They would use it for good health purposes. So if you think once again about heat expanding you, hey Julie, heat opening up the blood vessels, it causing everything to come to the surface and to be pushed out of you, to detoxify out of you. So that's what they'll do. They'll use a sauna to get you to sweat, to get your blood vessels opened up and everything to come to the surface. And then they'll have you run outside into the cold and roll into the snow, because then it pushes all the blood back into your core. So remember, we talked at the beginning about hot and cold. When they come together, they create life. And so when you do something hot, like a sauna, and then you run out into the cold, that back and forth, that hot and cold, up and down, that excitement generates life. It generates movement. Movement is life. And so that's actually a really big foundational piece. Movement is life. When you stop moving, when things stop moving, then everything starts to stagnate and die. So using the hot and the cold in that way, being in a super warm temperature, letting yourself sweat a little bit, and then going to do something cold so the blood goes back into the core, that brings life to all parts of your body, because now you've got the heat coming and everything coming, and then it being pushed back down, and then it coming and opening up and being pushed back down. It's great life. So what about when you've got an achy hip, or you've got an achy knee, or your back hurts, or something along those lines? You want to bring life to those areas too. And that's when you use a judicious use of hot and cold for pain management. And so heat will increase blood, let's say, to your knee, which is good, because it brings new life and new blood, into wherever it hurts, so it can heal it. And then when you alternate it with cold, then it pushes that blood back out. It pulls the heat and the blood back out. Hey, Sylvia. And then when you bring the warmth back in, it pulls more blood to the area. And then when you use the cold, it pumps it back out. It's almost like it creates more circulation. It brings life. It's like a pump, for whatever hurts. So if your shoulders hurt, if your knee hurts, if it's an achy kind of pain, if you alternate heat and cold like that, ice and then heat, it will keep pumping new life and white blood cells and nervous system signals and everything to the area that you want to that you want to heal. And it's the same way that people use hands-on healing. Because when you put your hand somewhere, when you put your presence somewhere, your body sends more blood. It just naturally sends it there. And then if you put your hand someplace else, it pulls the blood out of that area and brings it someplace else. And it makes it cold. So let's say if I wanted to heal my knee, I'd start out by putting my hand on my knee, and my body would start to send blood, and it would start to get warmer. My knee might start to get a little bit more pink, and it would be sending blood there and warming it up. And then what I might do is I might put my hand somewhere, let's say on my groin area, where my lymph is, and I'll put my attention there, and I might massage there, and that will pull the blood up towards your lymph and out of your knee. And then you put your hand back on your knee, give it some, good healing love. So your body sends blood there. Hey, Danny. And then back on your groin, and bring the blood back up to your groin. So it's that alternating of wherever you put your attention is where your body will heat up as well, and where it will put its blood. So you can create a pumping action without needing external sources of heat and cold. Yeah, absolutely. It's invigorating, Julie, to have a blast of cold water after a shower. It brings life to you. So you can do that with hands-on healing too. It's the hot and the cold. It's the bringing the heat to the place that hurts, and then bringing the heat and blood out of it by putting your hands in different areas. So those are some quick snippets of hot and cold that you can use in a mental way, in a physical way, in an emotional way, in a spiritual way, in order to feel better no matter where you're at. And it's one of nature's cheapest therapies. It's always there. And when you start to learn how to use the tools that you have, you don't have to rely as much on drugs or Advil or or fancy tools. Really, you can just use your own hands, or you can use the weather. Hey, Sherry. Or you can use ice, or hot water. You've got all the tools that you need. It's cheap, it's free, and if you start with those basics, you will not need the drugs. You will not need the crazy interventions. You won't need the crazy stimulations. You don't need a lot of that stuff because you've got it right at the tip of your fingers, either in your faucet. Hey, Natalie, in your faucet, or out of doors, or the amount of clothes that you wear, or your own two hands. Okay? So no matter where you're seeing this, please leave a comment below. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, topics you'd love to see, or just show me a little bit of love, because I certainly appreciate everybody showing up on these days. And I'm going to see you then Monday morning, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Ciao.